Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I'm Brian Call with co-host Brad Hunt. And today's episode is with Mike Summersby of Duckworth. Duckworth is the maker of fine American wool clothing, homegrown in the mountains of Montana. On this episode, we talk about our extended use and appreciation for the Duckworth powder hoodie, a piece of clothing that Ryan Lampers introduced to me more than 5 years ago. It's a fine product that we keep going back to time and time again, but the powder hoodie isn't the only great product made by Duckworth. And so on this episode, we talk about other products from their line. We discuss the finer traits of wool and especially Duckworth wool, starting with the sheep their ranchers breed and care for in Montana. As of about a month ago, we created a partnership with Duckworth. And if you use the code GRITTY at Duckworth, you'll get the latest and greatest deal over there, and you'll be supporting us. Look, we have used the powder hoodie for years, despite having zero financial incentive to do so. And the reason for that is because we love the powder hoodie. It just can do things that other products in the hunting industry can't do. There's something special about wool, and especially the wool from these guys in Montana. So if the powder hoodie is something you've been wondering about, and if you want to learn about why we often choose this wool top over other options from the hunting industry, this podcast is for you. Thanks for being here today. And stay gritty. All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I got Brad Hunt here with me today, and we are in Bozeman, Montana. And we have Mike Summersby here today from Duckworth, a clothing company. How do you say it? Duckworth?
Duckworth. Yeah, we just say Duckworth. Yeah. It used to be Duckworth Clothing, Duckworth Merino. We just say Duckworth now.
I just make sure when I send people, I say Duckworth Co. because you have to go to duckworthco.com, not Duckworth.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I've looked to see if we can get the Instagram account for just Duckworth, and it's this once was Olympic athlete for some event I can't remember. So that got claimed a while back. Yeah. Duckworth Co.
When I think Duckworth, I can't help but think of the Blazers from like 1990s. And Kevin Duckworth, since I grew up there and watched the games. But Duckworth, we're here today. We're gonna talk a little bit about the wool you guys and the apparel you guys put out. We've been using it since I met Ryan.
Well, I mean, I started using
Lampers.
it. I think I told you this before. It was like late 2015, 2016 when I was feeding cows and doing ranch work. And it was not as great a fitting piece back then.
No, there's been a lot of refinement.
But it did the job. It was cool.
And if people are listening, you've been watching our films for a long time. I've been making fun of Ryan's Duckworth gray powder hoodie for, I mocked it heavily for about 3 years.
The hippie hoodie.
Yes, I did. And then I don't remember how exactly I ended up with one on, and I was like, okay, I can't really make fun of it the way I did before.
Right.
And then I ended up ordering and getting my own. And it's just one of those pieces of clothing that I completely underestimated. Once I had it though, and I wore it, like I ended up wearing it more and more and more. Just like Ryan.
It's a four-season piece.
It's the homeless hippie sweater, basically. Yeah. One of my questions to Ryan as I made fun of it was, why? Why do you keep wearing that thing? What is it that is so special about it? At first, I didn't realize it was made out of wool.
Yeah. Well, that's the essential building block for Duckworth. Yeah, so we have 10,000 sheep about 2 hours from Bozeman, Dillon, Montana. They're free range and they're roaming the gravelies. They're roaming the Snowcrest Mountains. And we're making sure that those sheep are just having optimal, free-ranging, high alpine nourishment. And that building block right there is just essential to all of our clothing.
Yeah.
And it shows, especially, I mean, the powder hoodie is a heads and shoulder bestseller. There's nothing that comes close. I think it just really gets that high quality right every single time.
It's such a versatile piece. One of my issues with backcountry, with hunting, you're outside, and we're often hunting in those climates in the fall where it's cold, but so you need something on to battle the cold, but then we're active.
You're hiking.
You're hiking and you're climbing, and sometimes us with a pretty heavy load.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what's that piece where when you're kind of stationary and not hiking, you're comfortable, but when you start hiking, you can stay comfortable?
Yeah.
It's like, where's that garment that has that comfort range?
The breathability, the warmth.
It just feels like wool is one of the best fabrics for comfort range.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Temperature-wise?
There's nothing to beat it. I mean, we get a lot of returns, and these piss me off. This type of return where they're like, it didn't seem like it would do what they said it was going to do. And I'm like, did you wear it? Did you try it out? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, that's how you can tell. I mean, it really does boggle the mind when you get out there and you're just suddenly starting to move. You're like, okay, I'm not actually sweating the way I thought I was, and yet I'm still like consistently warm throughout the whole transitionary period from high interval, high intensity type of movement to just when you're sitting there laying down glassing. I mean, it's
also uncannily comfortable.
Yeah, it's super soft.
Like you throw it on and it doesn't impinge movement. It's not overly tight. It's not overly baggy. It's like this cut that's really nice. You can throw the hoodie on if you want. You got a little pocket in the front. That powder hoodie it just has become more and more of a go-to, and it's quiet.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm hunting elk in September or mule deer in August, it's like, and you're up in some of these alpine areas, you need something that's not loud.
It makes no noise. It's virtually noiseless.
Hey, if you like our show and you want to support us, you can head over to Canvas Cutter. They sell these awesome bed rolls that we've been using for years. You can just throw these suckers out on the ground, camp in them. You see I got my sleeping bag inside. Can't recommend them enough. They also have duffel bags, some of the best you've seen, canvas duffel bags. They've got beanbag chairs as well. They call them the dirt bag. They got wall tents. Head on over there, use the code GRITTY. Check it out. Cannot recommend the bedrolls enough. Let's get back to the show.
So, I mean, and also like that wool doesn't refract light the same way that synthetics do.
Yeah.
And so that's another huge benefit when you're talking what the animal can see versus what we can.
I mean, I mocked it pretty heavy for a while, and out of ego,
just making fun of a buddy.
Look, out of ego and pride, I wouldn't even give it a chance.
Yep.
But Lampers is a persistent fella. If he likes it, he's gonna wear it, and he wore it anyway. And then we started getting hit up, and people were like, "Hey, who makes that? Who makes that hoodie? Who makes that hoodie? Who makes that hoodie?" And we were like, Duckworth, you know, on little messages here and there, and it started to kind of catch on. And then somehow, I don't even know how we got in touch with you guys. It was probably like, did you reach out to us or did Brad reach out to you?
I think we did. I think a coworker may have reached out to you guys, and it just started the ball rolling. I think there was some communication years past,
I had tagged some stuff back and forth off and on, like on Instagram or whatever. And then I think through somebody that watched the film was like, hey, and sent us an email, got our contact.
Yeah, so it's like ships passing the night. We're both aware of each other. Obviously, you guys are putting out the gear. We have teammates watching your material and stuff. And so, like, you know, I'm glad we can finally make it work because there's a lot to talk about.
I'm excited, too, because you guys, as we came down here to hang out, we were introduced to a lot more than just the powder hoodie.
Right, yeah. I mean, right now I'm wearing the vapor hoodie because last time that we did an interview, I was cooking by the fire here. And so I was like, I need to wear something a little lighter. I know I'm trying to demo the piece, but no, this vapor hoodie is our lightest material. Goes all the way up to 710 grams per square meter, which is the Snowcrest shirt jackets that I sent you both.
Yeah.
That's bulletproof. I mean, like, that's what our ranchers wear in sleet, rain, you know, snow.
What's interesting, you know, we'll be trying out some new pieces as well. But what's interesting is how many people have been using your apparel for quite a long time in like the ranching and farming space.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a lot of hunters with it.
No,
they should have,
because I think there's always been this concept of wool/cotton kills.
Yep.
Which is cotton, I would say.
Cotton kills. It kills definitely. Wool will save your ass.
That's why I love like, even especially filming. I would say since 2021, I've been wearing like wool gloves that have a fingerless, and then I have a mitten that goes on them. The reason I wear that wool is because even when it's wet, my hands are still warm, yet I can still get my fingers out to run the camera.
Yeah.
And same thing with a wool jacket. Like when it's wet, it's still warm.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you can actually feel warmer.
Correct.
Like once it gets, I've been outside in like October, November in freezing rain, whatever. I'm like, oh my God, my gear is wet. And I'm like, I actually suddenly feel perceivably warmer. I'm damp. I'm not comfortable, but I'm warmer than I would have been with just the air passing over. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Absolutely.
Well, and you can beat the hell out of it too. Ryan uses it as a pillow. Ryan has he actually has I don't know how many he has, but when I met him, he was wearing this threadbare gray one that he'd had for a long time. Then he had like a really nice, cleaner, like you could tell was newer gray one.
This is out to dinner one.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I was complaining a little bit on one of the hunts where it was really wet, which the Duckworth, the wool is perfect for that weather that you don't want down. You don't want these, but it was warm. It was not only was it wet, but it was a warm, and I didn't really have a piece in between.
Yeah.
And he was wearing the Duckworth, and I was like, dude, it's too warm right now. We're here in August in this mild temperature hunting moose in Alaska. And I'm like, dude, how are you hiking around? Now, I just sweat way more than him and get hotter than him when we move around. But still, I'm like, dude, how are you doing that? And he's like, feel this. Well, he's like, this is the hoodie I wear that I've had for like 8 years. That's threadbare. That I love to wear for, because it's like a different weight because it's been used for so long. And then he's like, and then when we go on the colder hunts, I use my new one.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, you're telling me I got to wear one for like super many years and beat the hell out of it. That'll be my warmer season.
Well, not to plug it,
powder.
but we do make some midweight, items for that exact use case.
Now there's a lot more in the
in the lineup.
I mean, it's crazy. This piece, though, just to speak to the versatility of wool as a fabric, as a fiber, I mean, this piece is what I will wear into 100 degrees in the mountains as we're moving the sheep. I'm like, I don't want to wear a t-shirt. Even a cotton tee will make me hotter than this will keep me cool. And I'm like, it's just an unbelievable premise when you think about it.
Well, and we for a long time have always, I mean, I'm a think back way back, like when I first started wearing merino, I mean, I always wore a long sleeve merino type top.
Yep.
And it's I don't know, it keeps you protected from the sun.
Yep.
A white guy like me burning, but
well, that makes 3 of us.
Yeah,
sure.
But also it's like, it's just, you need I just like having a long sleeve shirt on because when you have brush that's going across your arms and stuff like that, sneaking in the desert or whatever, having some type of long sleeve shirt almost always on there.
Well, when you say desert, I mean, just to talk about the sheep in general, the biology of the sheep is that it evolved in a desert climate, right? And so, deserts are famously brutally hot during the day, and because there's nothing to retain the heat,
cold at night,
it gets down below freezing. So few animals that don't burrow or get the heck out of there cannot survive that type of swing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, our sheep don't experience that on quite a degree, but summer days might get up to 90. And here in Montana, in the mountains, it could easily get below freezing that night. But moreover, I mean, they're surviving -40 temps in the mountains during the winter.
Right.
And then in the summer, it peaks up to 100. So that's 140 degree, temp swing.
There's something about that animal and its fiber that just translates well into the type of clothing we need for the backcountry and our hunts.
It's like a superpower. I mean, a couple of coworkers of mine say that's a little corny, but I'm like, it really is. Like, if that's, every animal's got their superpower. The sheep aren't the most, marvelous creature you'll ever meet, but they are kind of have this incredible ability. I mean,
and I just refuse to wear anything else on my skin.
Yeah.
Like when I'm out there, it's been that Mountain Ops Merino hoodie for a long time. But it's going to be like what you've got on there, like that layer on that's just the base for all mountain hunting.
Yeah.
And even in the desert, Mexico, Arizona, all that, it's the same top because it doesn't collect odor.
Nope.
We don't shower.
Yeah.
We're there 10, 14 days.
And the animals are aware of that too.
And synthetic,
I mean, they're aware of
can
that.
just be rotten
by
after
day
a few
2, 3.
days.
Totally.
If you're sweating, the synthetic is terrible.
So merino's got that benefit.
I don't even
it's
notice.
Just cleaner.
I don't notice for
it's
weeks on
cleaner
end.
on your skin. I don't get the zits and the other issues.
Well, it's antimicrobial. That's what makes it,
and with
non-odor.
With the wool, especially with like a bino harness rubbing on your chest and stuff.
Yep.
There are certain types of wool merinos that actually will irritate your skin and it hurts, and it's because the fibers, the way the fibers are cut and how tight they are or whatever, which I know nothing about, but I know that there are some pieces that I'm like, I can't wear that because underneath my bino harness it's rubbing a rash and it hurts, where like the current one we've been wearing for a long time hasn't done that, that's why we wear it.
Well, we really do, just to keep backpedaling a little bit into what we do and what makes us different. I mean, when you say that we're accustomed using Duckworth at the outset for your agricultural work, right? We do have a piece of our DNA, which is that we are founded by 4th generation Montana sheep ranchers, right? So the premise is we're designing goods for them to manage sheep in those hostile conditions that we were just describing, right?
Yeah.
And so we have invested, though, those ranchers have invested a ton of work into the genetics, the genetic program of our breeding, facility and how that's done. And we've actually essentially bred the itchiness out of the fiber. We just, every single year, every single fleece is analyzed on a, microscopic level for that diameter. And that diameter is really what constitutes a really coarse, itchy type of fiber against something that's finer and can be made into something that I'm wearing right now next to skin.
Yeah.
And that really makes a heck of a difference. And a lot of competitors just can't match that, not because maybe their ranchers or their farmers aren't doing similar testing, but they're, they've got 15 different sources and then they're just blending it all into one stock. We blend, the AAA with the AAA. We blend our AA with our AA. And so therefore, it's source verified, it's single origin. And we're just literally every single fleece being like, oh, wait, this one goes into that batch. This goes into that batch. And then next year, make sure that you finds the right ram, right? So
yeah, it's pretty remarkable when you put on a powder hoodie, how good it feels on your skin.
It's I wear them as PJs.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it as a pillow as well. When I'm out there in my tent, it's like super comfy for that. It's just versatile, but it's PJs.
It's just not expected.
No,
people get it. That's why I think it's taken off too.
It's the name. The name suggests something kind of, powdery light, kind of like just stepping into that super light cold smoke snow. I mean, it's just really soft.
Yeah. And I'll say there's other products that are wool that I've tried that are wool based, largely wool based, because I just love wool. I just keep going back to it. But the other competitors out there that make a mid-layer, mid-weight, heavier weight sort of wool top, much like the powder hoodie, that I would say would be like the one for one. You'd swap this out for this brand's version. I've not found anything made from wool that can do it like the powder hoodie does.
Well, it's just like I'm describing. They just have too many sources, too many countries involved, which is a good opportunity for me to mention we're 100% American made too, which really does count at the end of the day.
Yeah, Mike, what I've seen is most of them blend too much stuff into it, which removes. Now it's not 100% wool, right? It's got other things mixed into it, which then, like whether it's spandex or some bit of cotton or other polyester, and then they kind of put parts in here and there so it stretches a little bit, and all this stuff that they add, and it's like, wow, every time you do that, you're reducing the use of wool and replacing it with something else, which is the type of fiber I don't want.
Right.
Trying to make the overall piece achieve an objective of comfort, stretchability, versatility,
just
durability,
degrades the performance of the product.
And in my opinion, you guys have been able to create a piece where it's all wool and give me all those factors without adding spandex to it.
Well, to be fair, we do employ the use of blends, but I think that there is a way to do that where you're not just kind of shooting in the dark, right? Like we've had fabric developers that have come to us that are, they're employed by governments. Like they're on a national, federal level by governments to develop textiles. Like they're at that level.
Yeah.
And that's actually a big piece of the genesis as well. We had an individual that was at that level of fabric development. And so when you do get the blend right, we have 100% merino lines. We have some blend lines. When you get the blend right, though, what you find is that you can make that enhancement without sacrificing any of the properties that the wool
I'm
does
not
bring
seeing
you.
Others get the blend right.
And that's again just because they're not. When you think one of our biggest competitors, right? And I don't even need to name names, but they are owned and operated by a private equity group outside of New York City. Or in New York City, rather. How could those individuals ever really intuitively know what it takes to take the sheep and then finish it into a garment?
Right.
They don't. They're never going to even need that merino. I suppose you could wear merino in New York City. I mean, it does get cold, but it just doesn't it's not aligned there.
It's not a necessity there.
No, we have feedback from the source that's like, all right, this year's crop is going to be best for this, right? We had these sorts of conditions. We can start to look at that and let's funnel wool into one of our specific fabrics more than the others because it's going to work best in that capacity. And, you know, when you manage the supply chain, especially doing it here in the States,
Yeah.
you know, we can just fly to our partners, you know, today. We could just leave Bozeman Airport and be in the Southeast or in New England, working with Americans, working with individuals that are equally expert in their craft versus having to wait for a time change, hurdle a language barrier, determine, where did this wool come from exactly? Was it Uruguay? Was it New Zealand? Was it Australia? Was it Turkey? Right. You know, where did this come from? How did we get here to this mistake, you know? And we don't make as many of those, especially on the blend level, because we don't lose sight of the product. We never lose sight of it.
We were just saying that in an earlier podcast, or earlier meeting that we were having, that too much of what gets designed in a boardroom and gets verified by people who don't actually really use it in real life in the conditions in which it's supposed to be solving problems for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a big mistake. And I think consumers that are looking for what we're offering, which is performance, you know, I think you saying it looked like the hippie hoodie, I'm never going to shy away from the fact that this is not fashion forward goods, right? These are not going to make you look. Also I think I look pretty good right now.
I got mocked for looking like Yoda. Yep. Pretty heavy in the brown one. So I had to switch it to green.
Well, that may have hurt you a little worse. I mean, on that front.
I don't know. Like, it was a different cut too. It did, you can tell a little bit if you know, you know.
Yeah, and we're refining for sure.
But I would say it kind of has a Lord of the Rings look to it. Like,
wouldn't know.
It has
Never
sort of a
it.
Really?
Sort of a cloak.
I'm a big fan.
You know, with the hood up. I definitely dig. It can't look. The hippie is the gray. Get rid of the gray, and you no longer look homeless to me. Plus, half his food spilled on it, and dirt and crap, and it shows up.
You get those earthy
You got
colorways.
A beautiful green or the tan. You no longer look like you're wearing some gray sweatshirt from the 80s, like Rocky under a bridge. Like, now you look like
100%. I know what you mean.
I will admit the gray is, because I have the gray. It is that
and
way,
it doesn't sell as well. It doesn't sell as well.
Ugly.
I think people are picking up the same thing. It just doesn't sell as well as as any of the other. I mean, spruce, the color you just mentioned, that green. I mean, we can't keep it on the shelf.
I love that one.
Yeah, we sell out of it like, I mean, just almost within days of it dropping. No matter the quantity, it always moves super quick.
So one of the things that for my audience that's listening, if I were to compare the this piece to an equivalent piece that's all synthetic in the hunting space, I think the Duckworth hoodie is a lot like the KUIU Kenai jacket. And the Kenai is made with some kind of baffling material. I should look it up, but I don't know. It's kind of thin. It's more compact, let's say, if you wanted to smash it and shove it into your bag, than the Duckworth powder hoodie would be.
Yep.
Weight is probably close to the same. But here's the deal. You see it in the movie The Struggle. You see me in that pouring rainstorm, and I toss Ben the lens rag to clean the camera. I toss it up to him, and you see me just huddled there in that 4-day nasty downpour. And I'm like, I am gonna hunt. This is a once in a lifetime tag. I am not gonna leave, even if it's pouring rain and my odds are almost zero. I'm still gonna be in the woods. I'm not on the couch.
Yeah.
So that's my attitude. I'm out there, and I'm getting. But you can't be sneaking around in rain gear when you're trying to draw your bow in bow range of an old bull elk.
No.
So even the rain, even though it gives cover noise, it's just not enough. The rain gear is not quiet enough. So here I am,
it's bouncing off the shell. I mean, the raindrops, you can hear it. You can hear it. The elk can hear it.
And when you go to draw a bow, it's just,
Yep.
So I'm like, and this bull has every chance. In fact, earlier we had seen the bull kind of walk under us and then run off. But anyway, that jacket, the Kenai in the pouring rain, I'm like, well, we'll just ride it out. Because so you get wet. You just make that conscious call. Yeah. Same thing on Kodiak. Same thing in Alaska.
Can't avoid it in some
tight quarters with a bow. You're just like,
it's acceptance.
You just got to get wet and deal with it. Because if you throw on the rain gear and your quarry comes walking in bow range, you're hosed.
Yep.
It's not going to end well. And so I'm sitting there in this heavy rain. Well, when you're wearing something that's warm in spite of being wet, that's the whole goal. That's the goal in this scenario. So I'm wearing the KUIU Kenai. I'm getting drenched. It's synthetic. It's that piece, like I was telling you about, kind of that same comfort ratio. You're pretty warm. You're pretty comfortable moving around a lot in it. It's not overly hot, but it keeps you warm enough. But wet, it was useless. I mean, it got drenched, and by the time it got really wet, which didn't take long, it didn't matter that it was synthetic. It just didn't stay warm.
Yeah, so it says it's a 3DE Plus synthetic insulation.
So,
and that's fancy.
I can then wear...
It's fancy word.
That's fancy sounding.
So then you swap it out, and I'm wearing the Duckworth hoodie in the pouring rain and getting drenched, and it's coming down, and it's very wet, and I'm insulated and warm. In spite of it being soaking wet, I'm still warm. I'm not comfortable, but I am warm.
But I mean, you couldn't avoid the rain if you wanted to be out there.
I was freezing in the Kenai. And so there's a stark example of the difference between the two. The KUIU is a little more compact and a little more has a little bigger, wider range of comfort in terms of it being you don't get as warm. Like that one's a little heavier. So I'm curious, like as we mess around with more of the Duckworth pieces, you know, a little lighter weight wool top of some kind, how will that kind of fit in the mix? But my point is, when we're hunting Alaska, when we're hunting Kodiak Island for blacktails, when we're hunting moose in some of these regions or grizzly bear in the springtime, these are wet, temperate rainforest climates. And I'm just like, you need this type of wool top. It's just bulletproof. So when we were with Brady and hunting moose, Ryan and I had these living in them. Yeah. And Brady's over there freezing his butt off. Yeah. And these, he was wearing Sitka, but he was wearing the equivalent to the Kenai jacket. And it just, you get wet.
Yeah.
So he was forced to put on rain gear often when Ryan and I weren't, to save that layer from becoming useless.
Yeah.
And it still would become useless.
It's a simple question. It's like, if you could have, I mean, that one difference becomes so critical, why not just take it out of the guesswork?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the thing is, I love wearing my Duckworth, whatever season it is, wherever I am, because I don't think about it.
But I will say, like when I was hunting muleys with Pedro in Alberta, I lived in that Kenai and I really liked it. And, you know, I'm belly crawling and I'm sneaking in, but it's a dry climate. And then I wore the Duckworth 2 a few times, and they were very comparable. I mean, but I could see how you could get away with just the KUIU in that environment.
But we have an answer. It's the wool cloud jacket.
I got to try.
It's filled with with wool.
And I'm telling you,
literally the jacket material.
That's the thing that I'm super excited about, because
into like a ball this big. I mean,
if you were to put your hands on the Kenai, and we were to put the hands on this jacket, what is the wool cloud?
The wool cloud,
they feel the same.
Yeah,
they almost look the same. You put the camel pattern on there, and you're like, only yours is filled with wool.
Yeah, it's a wool batting,
and the KUIU is filled with whatever that thing was.
Synthetic.
So you get the property of the powder hoodie of warming up when wet, which of all the products, I've actually experienced it most intimately with the wool cloud, because you kind of wear it in that kind of pseudo rainy, misty, whatever type of vibe. It just feels natural to grab that one. I've experienced that, being like, wow, this is doing what it's supposed to. Like, I'm actually warmer.
It's also got that compact nature that
you can shove it into a ball, like literally the size of a
Kenai
softball.
does.
Yeah,
the Kenai has been Pedro's favorite piece by far. Wears it almost all the time, and he told me about it, and I really liked it. And so I find myself either taking the Duckworth hoodie or the Kenai on equal numbers of hunts, but more and more back. You see it in the film. It's more and more back to the Duckworth,
especially when
because
you know that it's going to be a much more wet hunt.
Let's talk about the compressing too.
You're never ready. It's always around. You know.
Yeah.
But when you're compressing it to get it into that bag, right? You're talking about a plastic fiber. So let's just imagine a plastic strand against this sort of elastic, dynamic, organic fiber, right? You will snap that piece of plastic far more easily than you would snap a piece of, living organic material.
Right.
And therefore, the more you shove that into the bag,
The worst.
the worse insulation it's long-term going to give you, right? Like this never compresses. It never loses its shape. You maintain that insulation. Yeah, I mean, that wool batting fill, you just maintain that insulation property. So
I got it. I could easily see that wool cloud jacket replacing the Kenai.
it's the one that is sent back quite a bit, though, because people are like, it feels too thin. And I'm like, dude, you have to try it. It's kind of seeing isn't believing. It's one of those things that's like,
that's where the hunting community probably won't send it back.
Yeah,
because
correct.
that is exactly how our favorite layers feel.
right.
The weight to warmth ratio and performance is like, it's key.
Yeah.
The weight to warmth ratio. If it's
But if
super
you're
heavy, I'm not taking it.
But if you're kind of a city
Totally.
person, you're like, I want this piece to stand out at a football game or
Right,
whatever.
right,
You're
right,
like, this wasn't what I thought it was. I
Yep.
can see that. I can see that. But I can tell you, like, the feel of it makes you, as a hunter, go, oh, this is the piece right here.
It looks super simple. It feels really simple. It's just not. And that's really what's really cool about Duckworth and wool in general. It's just that there's so much more than meets the eye.
Yeah. We got to try it. We got to put that through some paces. What other pieces are super popular in the line?
Well, I think, talking to an audience that I presume is male heavy, I can just highly recommend the men's Vapor Brief. It's this material.
Yeah.
I haven't worn a different brand of underwear in almost
Nice.
5 years, like literally not once.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense. It's so comfortable.
right.
Hot weather, cold weather, but especially
Antimicrobial.
antimicrobial, that no stink. Yep. I mean, but if you're, in a hot environment, that's where you really definitely want that, because you're just, sweat is a non-factor, that sort of swampy feeling of wearing synthetic underwear, which I grew up wearing synthetic underwear when I was doing backcountry type of activity.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't, and it's actually fun. It's fun to sell it in person. We don't often do that because we're an online e-commerce business, but there have been a couple times where we sell right outside of Schnee's because our office is right above Schnee's. And I'll pull aside like a really big guy and I'm like, you're hurting right now. Like, I
Try
know
these on, buddy.
you buy these and you come back and, tell me what you
know.
think. And they're like, this did actually do exactly what you said.
For the last 2 years, since like Mountain Ops and Everly Stock have come out with like a merino bottom, that's what I've been wearing on the hunts the last 2 years.
we have leggings. We actually have a powder like sweatpant that's the same material as the powder hoodie. So it's 1-for-1 material. It's just shaped into a sweatpant. So I highly recommend, if you like the hoodie, you're going to like those.
Yeah.
Let's get that one for the wife.
Yeah.
No, those are super, super awesome. I've had mine for like, 4.5 years. There's like burn holes in them from fire or whatever. But like at the end of the day, they still are super reliable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's just me standing next to a fire with too many drinks. But
So like, as far as going back to like the different wool materials, the like different types of fibers that kind of go into, and you briefly touched on it earlier.
Yep.
But like the different types of climates that those sheep are in and how that performance is related to the wool itself.
absolutely.
Like, I wanted you to touch on that because I found it super interesting on like,
Yeah, and that's where that selectivity comes through, right? So like when you throw a fleece under this machine, and it's I always forget the name, it's like an optical diameter analyzer type of thing or whatnot, it will really quickly comprehend the amount of fiber that are under a certain diameter.
Size.
Yeah, and so that will tell you give you a comfort score, right? And so basically what we're doing is, your chest, your arms, your legs, your groin, your face, your neck, these are sensitive places on the body when it comes to having a fiber rubbing
on
up
your
against
skin.
it. Yeah. And so the other places that aren't would be your hands, your feet, your ankles, top of your head, especially if you have hair. I don't. So
Hair's overrated.
yeah, that's what I'm saying too. But either way, we're able to say, okay, put the coarser stuff where it belongs, which is on the feet, on the head, on the hands, in outer layers, etc., in that merino wool batting material.
Yeah.
Take that really fine stuff. And what you're describing that I touched on a little bit last time is it's sort of counterintuitive. You would think that coarser hair would be naturally warmer, higher performing, because we maybe just as Americans think the more the better, right?
Yeah, right.
And so really inversely, when you have an animal that is out in minus 40-degree weather, just like us, just like all mammals, their primary reason for taking in fuel is to create body warmth, and everything that is left over becomes that wool. So they don't have the opportunity like sheep that are living in, you know, a more temperate environment, like maybe like parts of Ireland would be a, you know, commonplace, or Australia would be another commonplace, where they're just like, well, we don't really need to stay that warm. So like all of this excess caloric value is going into that fleece.
Yep.
However, for us, because they're having to use so much of that intake just to keep their body warm, that fleece ends up growing really fine. And therefore you have a really, really comfortable, you know, delicate type of material.
Hey folks, if you like the show and you want to support us, use the code GRIDDY over at Tricer. Head over to tricer.com, check out their AD and their BC model tripods, the LP head. Combined, the AD weighs 38 ounces and the BC weighs 32 ounces. They're incredible tripods. They're super stiff, rigid. They perform excellent. The heads are beautiful, smooth. Check it out. You can't go wrong for a backcountry hunting situation. They're the tripod of choice for us right now. Check it out, tricer.com. Use the code GRIDDY and save. Now let's get back to the show.
It's no different. It's funny. You see a wild animal, deer or elk, and they have like their summer coat and their winter coat, and you see a dog or you see a horse or something. And some years it's like, oh man, they really put on a thick winter coat. Like it seems like, you know, conditions drive a physiological response in the animal to grow what it needs to survive.
And the other thing that
you torture these sheep to the top of the mountains in cold ass Montana, we're going to have some different fur.
No, 100%. And the thing that's interesting about the sheep as well is that you would, you know, someone would be like, well, finer fleece would, you know, you would think that would mean less warmth ultimately, because what their fleece around them is like a layer of fiberglass. You can think of it really simple terms, just a layer of insulation. Keeps the cool in, keeps the hot out, depending on the season, et cetera, et cetera. They have essentially, you know, through their biology circumnavigated the fact that they might grow really fine fiber in a really cold winter by the hair grows like a zigzag. And so that becomes like layers of insulation. So it's not just straight up like us, you know, it just layers upon layers. So it's just like it has,
it's fascinating,
you know, 40 different layers of an insulative wall to get through to maintain that thermal regulation.
It's crazy. It's like when I had a goat and they're like, the hair is hollow. And I'm like, hollow? Every single hair follicle is hollow?
Right.
On a dairy goat, you know, like why? And then you dig into that and you're like, well, for the conditions they're in. And I had goats in the Northwest, and it's like, well, that hollow fur didn't do you so good in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
But it did great in a place where a typical goat never encounters rain, just snow.
Yeah.
And so, you know, where wool's great because it can handle the rain and stay
handle
warm.
Anything, man. It just like really bounces back
like,
from whatever. It's like, you know, again, every animal has their superpower. Sheep aren't the brightest in the bunch. They're not the most like noble creatures of all time, but
I don't know. I like a bighorn.
Yeah, true. Okay.
That's like that's a sheep species that is bad.
No, that's a badass one. The ones we have aren't particularly badass.
Right. They're more like the ones who roam in Hawaii that you're shooting.
They're skittish.
Maggots?
No. They're skittish. No, they're skittish. But they're, you know, they have this miraculous, just incredible evolutionary design.
You take that and you domesticate it a little bit, and you end up with something pretty special. It seems like, based on our experience, that you're doing something right. So one of the other things, you know, cut, stitching. You know, I know you guys have made some changes over the years. How do you get the wool to stitch? It's not the easiest to sew, is it?
It isn't. I mean, wool is incredibly sophisticated at almost every level in terms of the production, in terms of our supply chain. And the thing that makes making something out of wool in the United States particularly difficult is how much expertise left, you know, particularly during the NAFTA period.
Like departed the country?
Yeah, has left the country or literally passed away. I mean, expertise has died off. And so with that, we have sort of machines that could use a lot of TLC. We have, you know, processes where people are almost relearning from, you know, books or, you know, trying to fly to other countries and be like, please help educate me to understand how to do this. So it's been a give and take process for us as well. Even people that started, in this business of wool. I mean, we've had to learn, this type of stitch does really well. We've taken the feedback from people being like, hunters seem to really bust this one seam. So how do we reinforce that, or how do we just reimagine the stitching altogether? It's really, what do we listen to our customers, because ultimately without them, this whole thing dies. So we have to we can't iterate as quickly as someone that just calls up their facility in China or Vietnam and says, we need 3,000 of these with this type of cut difference. But
and with synthetic, with man-made fibers and such, you can kind of just ramp up the machine.
Totally.
And you kind of invented your way out of these older, more tried and true, like classic fibers. Look, the thing is, though, it's hard to beat some of the stuff that nature made, that God made. It really is tough to beat.
You take a horse. I mean, it drives me insane when people put horse blankets on horses. Yeah. Because a horse is designed to, like, throughout the day, to lose and grow hair and thickness or whatever. And so, like, when you put a blanket on it, you're messing with that. So, like, for those animals to sit out there in negative 40-degree weather in the wind, like, their body's doing. So it's just like cattle.
Yep.
When you see cattle in the middle of minus 30-degree temperatures, when they got ice on their back, that's good. That means their body is working.
Like an igloo.
It's keeping that cold out and keeping the hot in.
Totally.
And horses are the same way. Sheep are the same way.
Yeah.
When you take a natural resource like that is able to fluctuate between the hot and cold and grow and
it's not quite biomimicry, like to the exact degree where you're literally trying to take a behavior or a method of like locomotion that an animal does, but we are harnessing that that natural capacity. And when you're talking about a horse, right? Like the horses we know come from like the Central Asian steppe. It's a lot like Montana.
Yep.
It's freezing cold in the winter and it's super hot and arid during the summer. So they're going to do just fine here without a blanket.
Exactly.
As long as they have hay.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's the big thing. Like when you throw the blanket on there, then you just totally mess with their whole body, how it regulates.
Right.
And now you're forcing it to like, well, inside I'm hot, so I got to lose that hair. When you take the blanket off, then it's like, oh, now I got to try and regrow that.
Yeah. And
you're just messing with it.
And we have, in a sense, like messed with the sheep, right? Like we have tried to render certain qualities of the wool in each genetic crop. Like each generation will have this even better than the one before it. But one of the ways is that a domestic sheep will keep growing its wool. If you don't shear it, like it's just going to keep growing. I don't know if you've seen like the pictures of those sheep that have like gotten loose in like New Zealand, and
it's
they
like
look
the hooves too.
Yeah, you can barely see like a nose and some feet coming through because they're just. So they do require that we shear them, and so like that is the one place that we intervene. They go out there, their skin, like thickens and like I think it's 24 hours against any temperature, and they grow it back the next year. So it's a super renewable, sustainable source that just year in, year out provides.
When people go and they look for something American made, it's usually a little more expensive than anything that we can import at this stage. But I would say, and I'm curious what you think, the pricing on the wool, for example, I kind of look at all my hunting gear in this light. How many wears do I get out of it? How much did it cost me per wear? I do the same thing when I buy a car. I go, how many miles are left on this? And how much did it cost me per mile?
Sure.
And per year.
Super sensible way to think about things.
It's just math. And then I'm like, well, with Duckworth, like powder hoodie, I've been beating the hell out of mine for like 3 years, wearing it on every single hunt from start to finish. And then at home as well. And it's just hanging on.
Yep.
So what is the durability rate with you guys? What do you what's your feedback on that? Like, we beat the hell out of them, but
I think it's kind of funny, especially with the powder hoodie. The powder hoodie shows its wear most. It doesn't mean that it's lost its performance, but because of the specifics.
Oh, mine's ugly.
It's kind of ugly. It's got that pilly nature to it. It shows its wear the most. Like if I wore this for, I have this equivalent that's 5 years old and it looks kind of stained here and there, but it looks pretty similar.
Yeah.
What we've seen with people with the powder hoodie in particular, it's kind of hilarious at this point. Is like there are just dudes wearing like a dish rag around town.
Mine's.
It looks like a hoodie. You can tell it's
it
made
gets
of wool
all nappy
still.
a little bit. It's got little balls
but
on
like
it.
you can tell they're like, yeah, man, like it's kind of like battle scars, you know. It's like this has been a well-earned type of like
it still
appearance.
doesn't look bad to me though.
Well, I'll tell you, like,
just doesn't look like it used to.
As of, I don't know, it was like probably a year.
I mean, I belly crawled in the dirt, like 75 times,
like
in one season.
A year to a year and a half ago is when I finally like discarded the first piece that I had.
Right.
And I mean, it was like all the fibers, you could just like pull them apart. There's nothing left of it.
Yeah.
But it still was half performing. But that was the very original piece, I think, that one of the few pieces they first came out with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is one of the original pieces.
9 years of use. And I mean, I used it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
And when you're talking about price too, right? Like how we are priced within the market, you could go and look right now. We are really similar to our competitors.
For sure.
Even sometimes more affordable. And so the thing that really irks me doubly about companies that are as disconnected as we mentioned earlier and then doing it for cheaper overseas is they're kind of ripping you off at the end too. You know, like let's just take wool out of effort. Like it costs like $2 to make a pair of Ray-Bans. Right. You know, how much do you pay for them? Like $200.
I don't know how much is true, but I heard like an iPhone is like less than 12 or 15 bucks.
Yeah. To make. So it's good brand positioning.
$1,500 right here. Like, come on.
It's marketing, not to like, you know, discredit the importance of marketing, but it's marketing, right? And like what you see for us is a price point that pays American wages because those are regulated depending on the state that it is. I mean, it varies state to state, but that's a regulated price, fixed price, or at least the minimum is a fixed price. And it's giving us just enough margin, literally. I mean, just enough margin to pay our operations team, buy the wool from the ranch, you know, kind of make sure that the ranch isn't just throwing their money into nothing, even though they're part of the business, and then be able to reinvest into R&D. And then there's really not much cash sitting around at the end of the day.
I mean, you take like a piece like we were talking about before, and I mean, it's minimum $200.
Well, and you know, we're on a mission to revitalize American agriculture and American manufacturing and retether those two.
There's a hunger for that.
We're mission based. We're not profit based right now. It'd be nice to be a super profitable large business. Of course, we're in business.
There, though.
No, it is. It for sure is. But like our mission is to breathe new life into these two entities. You know, I'm from New England originally, right? And I explained this last time to you guys. What's really cool for me is a lot of our facilities are in New England. Right. And growing up, if you go around a lot of towns, they're mill towns that are completely abandoned. It's like, you know, auto factory towns in Ohio Detroit. And Michigan.
Yeah.
And for me to know that we are impacting communities 2,000 miles away that, you know, have suffered from drug abuse and truancy and petty crime of all sorts because of a joblessness, an epidemic of joblessness. I mean, I'm like, that's pretty sweet that a little company in Montana is taking a really concerted swing at a problem that is nationwide. This is just what, you know, this is our specific business. So that's our specific tether, but more American businesses step up and do that. You know,
it needs to happen. It looks like with tariffs coming,
social change,
tariffs coming and other things, we're going to bring a lot of this manufacturing back to the U.S. We were on our way before the last administration came into office, and which put us back a little bit. Hopefully, though, we move more into that direction. And I would like to see, like, we have a lot of companies we work with, and some of them we're deeply involved with. And I would love to have what we sell be made in America. But we don't even have the machines here to do it if we wanted to.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
No, and that's just that's like just supply, demand, and market forces forcing that type of acquisition and establishment.
They were forced out by
regulation.
By regulation, almost forcing these companies to take that talent, that industrial capability, and ship it overseas to our detriment long term. I mean, at some point, it's like, what was this? Why did we move away from manufacturing almost everything and only move into this like IT, white collar IT country? Well, talk about setting ourselves up for
absolute failure.
For failure down the road when we get into a war. No one will make the products that we don't have the industrialization to supply our own nation with things. It's insane.
What's scary is you take
steel. We don't make any of it. It's like, what the hell?
I think we just sold the largest plant to a Japanese company as well. So
you take.
I see it changing though over the next 4 years. This is just, it has to stop. Well, and there's an appetite for it, like you said. And what's cool is Duckworth's already there.
as a consumer, what I would pay attention to is what brands do you love that are making things overseas, which is not the sole determinant of why you buy a product, right? Like every single one of us here has an iPhone. That's not made here. It's the best product on the market for what it is.
Exactly.
However, you should look to see which product or which companies right now in this period before the existing administration comes in and, you know, these tariffs that right now are still theoretical, which of them are moving to just different countries that are outside of that tariff. You know, it's just like you had the opportunity to do, you know, the sensible or, you know, I guess air quotes right thing. And you've just kind of just dodged the issue one country over.
I bet you we see.
I think a lot will come back, but there are already a list of companies out there that are moving just, you know, Vietnam or whatever it is. So
when I've got this Duckworth site open here and I'm looking at this Wool Cloud full zip jacket, you know, and I'm very curious about this thing. After wearing the Wool Cloud full zip jacket, you'll never want another traditional down or synthetic puff jacket. Very interesting. Okay, so the Kenai falls into something like this. It says why when down, which is made from bird feathers, and we love down. Love it.
Down has a place.
But when it gets wet, it becomes a mushy ball. It becomes a useless piece of trash that is no good until you get it home because it's almost virtually impossible to dry out there. We have wood stoves, but even then, down, once it's thoroughly wet, it's a tough garment to dry out without like a dryer. Goes on, it says, when synthetic fillers get wet and worn down, they become increasingly compressed, providing less insulation. On the other hand, the Duckworth wool cloud jacket is filled with a merino wool batting, which never loses its loft and insulation and becomes warmer as soon as it's introduced to water. Lightweight and boasting a nylon water-resistant shell, this merino wool jacket also features a paneled hood, 2 large insulated pockets, and so on, full front zip. So the zip was one of those things where I'm like deciding where to go. What hunt I'm on, whether I take the Kenai or the powder hoodie. And it's like, unzipping the jacket and letting some air come in and zipping it right back up again, depending on exertion levels, is handy. Powder hoodie, I got to pull it over my head, get it off my body. If I have a vest on, I can't just unzip, get a quick airflow, zip it back up. So you're solving this problem for me with this wool cloud full zip jacket here. But it's not cheap. It's not overly costly compared to hunting gear that we typically get our hands on. But it does seem like this no bulk merino wool jacket is a very unique solution compared to the synthetic versions that we're seeing. And which we gravitate. I'm not lying. We're gravitating toward a lot of that because it's a little bit less bulky and a little more comfortable and just user friendly with a zip and all that and a hood, and then a lot of the sort of your traditional wool garment might have. Well, what I wanted to ask, you can chime in anywhere you want.
No, you're
good.
But
one of the questions I wanted was like, what made you go here? Like, how come you came up with this instead of just running with like the powder and something else? Like, this is a really interesting and innovative idea.
It comes from, one of the things that I think is really great about Duckworth is there's literally something for every single person in this country, no matter what your beliefs are, no matter how you lean. Few companies can offer something like that. We have the sustainability and the natural factor and the fact that, we're stewarding this immense amount of land and making sure that there's a balance of sage and pine and the whole equilibrium is there. We're out there. There's the American made, more maybe traditionally conservative leaning type of element, right? There's the performance element. There's all these things. What's really great about this is that this was born out of the sustainability type of component of the business, which is you have all these strands when you're shearing sheep that are just too short to be, they're just physically too short to be, molded spun into an actual yarn. So what do you do with them? You can throw them in the garbage. Or you can figure out how to use them. So if you cut that open, what you're looking at is what every other company has decided not to use. And we're like, we have an opportunity to introduce a competitor. We have an opportunity to start carving out a little into a niche that's, every American literally has a jacket. So it's a huge market.
So interested in stacking that against like KUIU makes their Sitka makes that
Yeah.
shirt. What's it made out of? It's
Yeah.
similar. I forget what it's called. Ryan wore it quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if they do still make it. I think they do.
But they have similar like
Right.
garments like the vest
Mhm.
that I wore forever. But man, if you hiked in that, dude, you would burn alive. It didn't breathe.
Well, I wear my wool cloud jacket with a t-shirt in the winter. I mean, as long as I'm moving, that's a ridiculous setup to wear if you were going to be, you know, laying down and not moving and studying animals and what have you.
Which is
just to walk around in that, though. I'm like, this thing is crazy that I just throw it over my t-shirt, and I'm like,
yeah,
pretty
that's
much
sort of how the Kenai. If I sit still in it too much and I'm not like moving, I'll freeze my butt off.
Yeah, but you know, would
eventually.
you wear just a t-shirt under it if you're in the winter and you're out hunting? Probably not. I mean, you might just throw like at least one.
I'd wear
under, you know?
But
I combo mine with the powder hoodie for like really cold still days. I mean,
like I'm super excited to try it out,
especially
like
for the lightweightness, and then because I like.
and the compact.
And then having the vest too.
Yep.
And then throwing that on, that's because I don't need any more warmth in my arms.
Yep.
But I just need that core body warmth. So when you pair that with the jacket and the vest, and then probably the powder hoodie, like you kind of got it all at one time.
You really do. And that's the thing that I love. I have one piece of every single one of our styles. And whenever I leave the house, you know, packing my bag, I'm just like, okay, 4 to 5 of the 8 fabrics are going into the bag, one piece apiece, or one piece apiece. And then I'm pretty much set for whatever I'm, you know, getting out into. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of cool. One of the other pieces I wore last week that I tried on when I was here was that sort of dress up piece. It's pretty nice. The collars, the collared shirt.
So that's the Snow Crush shirt jacket.
Yes.
Which it looks dressy, but like that is what I was saying. And it's expensive. It's not a cheap piece. But it is like heirloom quality. Like you will be, you know, Grandpa Brian and Brad passing that down, and like your grandson is going to be super stoked.
Exactly.
And it's going to be just as performative. I mean, that thing though, like you dump a glass of water on it, see what happens.
Yeah.
It's just going to slick right off.
Yeah. It's a nice looking high class.
Our ranchers rock that. Like they're in the winter, they're out there, and
I can see me particularly like wearing that a lot.
Totally,
honestly.
Totally. And we have some like Western cut type of stuff, like that being one of them, the Sawtooth flannel shirt, which is 100% merino, like sort of flannel answer. You know, our ranchers like to wear those because they maintain sort of their ranchery vibe, but they're still, you know, getting that really high quality merino, you know, performance. But during the summer, I mean, they're wearing like same layer I have on right now, powder hoodie, you know, wool cloud jacket when they're skiing. So they're you know, they're evangelists as much as anyone, but they're definitely they really like that piece because it does have that just super, you know, they can wear it outside and then just go right downtown and go to the bar and like meet up with friends and, you know, feel like they're just wearing their regular clothes.
Exactly.
I'm curious, like for those that are listening to this podcast that have followed the channel for a while, kind of what we do, followed Ryan. There's been plenty of people who now own and have put this Duckworth gear to the test. We have so many comments and questions about
it's
it.
Insane. Insane.
And we did get a code. If you use the code Gritty and you go to Duckworth, you get a discount, and that's cool. So we appreciate that. So now I'm curious if people will leave a comment or share on the YouTube video, especially. We try to get back to those and get engaged there. What the feedback has been, you know, what's your thoughts on the Duckworth gear that you have, and does anybody have some experience with the other pieces that we're talking about?
It's shocking because we've spent so much time out in it, and like with a backpack rubbing on it, your bino harness rubbing on it, how well like the powder hoodie, for example, has performed. Like it's really good.
But I'm curious, you know, what other people's experience has been, especially anybody that's used some of the other pieces.
Well, I'm super curious as well because, as I said, we only better our products based off of how our customers, you know, feedback comes through. I mean, that is essential to us, so please don't hold back. But I'd also say as well, if there's a problem with your gear, it's almost certainly a mistake. So, come contact us, and we'll make sure that, if it's like a serious like if there's anything that feels off, it's probably almost certainly a mistake, and we will make sure to get that product, replaced or get you another substitute. So far,
what we've received is people love it. But I'm curious. We haven't really been engaged with much of the other pieces.
Yeah.
Now Ryan's used quite a bit of it here and there, so I still have to. But I still got to try it myself.
Yeah,
the Wool Cloud full zip. I'm curious about that in terms of people's response, and I would love to see Duckworth being a Montana based. The sheep are here. Not only are you supporting, a Montana business, but you're supporting Montana ranchers.
Absolutely.
And you're supporting Montana farms and like all this stuff that's right here in the U.S. So. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be part of that.
It's been an honor to work for Duckworth and help, further that mission for sure. It's been as far as marketing jobs can go, I can sell you Coca-Cola, or I can sell you something that really does change lives, from both the producer to the end.
Life in a different way.
Right. Yeah, true. But you get what I'm saying. It's been an honor to have a truly mission-based business that has been able to, we've been able to push it uphill, and it's been never easy, but it's always been worth it.
I think a lot of our audience is aware of Duckworth, and a lot has no idea what we're talking about until this podcast.
Yep.
Because you're kind of either in the know or you completely clueless.
Yeah.
Because it just hasn't transcended the mainstream part of the hunting industry, even though we've been using it for years. So it'll be interesting to see, how this exposure might grow and get it, especially people keen to it outside of just Montana, and really see. I'm excited.
And Code Gritty is just a great way to just start it up, and you can return it. If it doesn't work, you don't like it, return it. No biggie. Someone else will buy it.
Yep.
And then you've got new product stuff kind of down the roadmap here.
Yeah, we release a couple new products every year, and sometimes they're a little more out of the box, right? Like we had a partnership with a glove manufacturer out of Oregon. They make deer hide gloves. We lined it with the powder material.
Nice.
So that's like kind of, it wasn't like expanding upon a line, but kind of just introducing something with a fabric that we already had. That's a lot of how we expand, is like, let's just take this fabric. Let's see how we can morph it into something new. Sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't. We actually made shorts out of powder this year. We had 160 drop. They were sold out that day. Like it was kind of a weird product. We're like, do you think this would work?
Yeah.
I love them.
So supply and demand.
Yep.
Now there have been times where I've gone to get something and it's just out of stock.
It takes up, that's the thing. It's like, we're not rushing, like we're in this for the long haul. And so we do find that there is frustration with sometimes items being out of stock, particularly the more popular items, spruce powder hoodie being one of them. As we grow, we become more efficient. Our supply chain becomes more efficient. Our manufacturing partners get more bold and comfortable knowing that business is going to be repeat and consistent, and like that's the level that we're trying to get to. So we're literally trying to build other businesses up as we're building our own business, which is kind of a little bit of a daunting premise. I mean, not many business owners would want to take on that double challenge.
Yeah.
But, suffice to say, the bigger we get, the more consistent that delivery schedule will be, the more regular product drops will be. But my best recommendation is just sign up for back in stock.
Yeah.
If you see something you
that's
like,
all I do.
Get on that list. It's automated. As soon as it drops, you're getting the email fired off. Don't hesitate, though, because if it's been out of stock, it's going to go fast.
Well, and that's it. And I knew I had like this moose hunt, and I'm like, come on. And then it came in, and then I bought two because I'm like, well, shoot, because I could get one from my wife. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm just going to buy them both now because who knows when they'll be back in stock again.
Yeah, it's a long,
especially in the color I want and all that.
Yeah, even being done domestically, it's just a long. You know, a lot of times we shear sheep and that wool becomes a garment that's available for sale like 2 to 4 years later.
Yeah.
Especially depending on the product. So it is a long, complicated supply chain that is getting more and more refined, customer feedback, our own observations, but we're able, it's just been, especially the last 4 years, we've really been able to throw some serious refinement and guardrails on it that's allowed us to grow pretty quickly in the last 4 years. Nothing crazy, but enough to make us pretty stoked for what's ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Where can folks tap into Duckworth? What's the socials?
Yeah, the Instagram and Facebook is Duckworth Co. at Duckworth Co. So DUCKWORTHCO. A little bit of a mouthful, but Duckworth Co. And then our website is duckworthco.com. But I like to tell people to start with just the Instagram and the Facebook because it's just such a fun, visual, storytelling based business. I mean, there's so much realness imbued into it that is beyond what you can really value as the product. I'm like, don't even go to the website. Just go to the Instagram, dig the content.
You'll also kind of see real quick, oh, I want that that piece. I like it.
Yep.
It looks sharp. It's got the pieces, the things I want. You can kind of just real quick, instead of perusing through the website.
I totally agree. And I think it's kind of fun. I don't know. There's just a lot of good stuff on there. And every single one of our models, air quote, is a real person.
Yeah.
That we're just like, hey, do you want to, you already wear it?
A real rancher, a real farmer.
Yeah. Could we get you some money and some extra gear to come out and just film you doing your life?
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. So like, it doesn't feel like it's an oppressive marketing front,
Yep. It's cool.
Just, but once you take a look at that, we're going to hit you with a couple retargets. No promises.
Right.
That's my job. So I'm sorry, but yeah.
Yeah. Sign up, check it out. Go give them a follow. Thank you for tuning in. And Mike, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Folks, stay gritty.